Hello and welcome back, Eddie Radosovich. George Stoy here for the SoonerScoop.com studios. A not so much Victory Monday. Welcome back to another recruiting report here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. Josh McCuistion back in Scoop HQ in Houston. And you were busy this weekend, Josh. Headed out to a pair of games. Saw a Oklahoma commit as well as a pair of Oklahoma offers. One of the teammates of Courtland Guillory. You went to see Klein Oak, though, on Thursday night, excuse me. And we've been talking about Courtland Guillory. He's off to having a fantastic year for Klein Oak, and went to go see him for the first time in person, or I guess this season in person. And what'd you think of Courtland Guillory? Looks pretty good. Stars on both sides of the ball for Klein Oak.
Yeah, this is a guy that what I was interested to see, and Eddie, you and I have talked about this for a long time. I love when a DB is such a good athlete, they feel that need to put him on offense. Like, we got to find a way. We got to get this guy around the football. I think that's usually a really good sign. Like, okay, not only do they trust the guy, but he's just exemplary. We want to get him around the football. So they did, and now I thought Klein did a really good job. They keyed on him. Obviously, we're very aware when 6'2" speed guy walks in on the field. They picked up on him quickly. But he did break loose at one point, had a big run in this one. But again, it was my first chance to see Courtland in a game, and I came away really pleased.
Had the 52-yard run, out of the Wildcat. It was a tough night for Klein Oak. They fall to Klein 48-24, but certainly, and I think this is something that we have highlighted here over the course of this season on the Recruiting Report Mondays. Definitely somebody that loves to come downhill from that safety position.
He really does. And again, on the flip side, I'm talking about how much they were keying on him when Klein Oak had the ball. But when it would flip around, and he was obviously really nice tackle for loss here, steps up, makes a good play. That was him at safety. Now, what was impressive to me is at halftime, Klein Oak makes the adjustment, and they say, okay, we see what Klein's doing offensively here, and they were basically just hitting some of their receivers on these little short passes and basically taking Courtland Guillory out of the game. So Klein Oak's like, okay, we can deal with that. So what do? They line him up at corner for the entire second half, and I'm telling the receiver that was absolutely cooking in the first half just became a non-factor in the football game. They didn't look his way again. They didn't challenge. There was really only one time all game, and here's the 52-yard run for everybody to see. I mean, again, he's one of those guys, he's so long-legged, you don't even realize how much ground he's really covering, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, he's by me. So, again, just a really athletic kid, good instinct. I think really understands kind of what his role is, what he's trying to do in that scheme. But to finish my thought on the corner, they only threw it in one time, and he just about picked it off. Basically, he leaps, and he's right in front of me. Would have been a beautiful shot if I wasn't trying to take photos of him. So he goes up, grabs it, and he's just kind of fighting with the receiver as he comes down, but he still manages to get a foot in bounds. Like if the receiver doesn't get any hand in there, it's 100% an interception, and I would be telling you all how sad I am that I didn't get the video of it. But again, just a really complete player, very physical. You can see how well he fits what Oklahoma wants out of their corners.
Josh, let's get into his recruitment a little bit, because I know he visited Texas a couple weeks ago now when they played Georgia, obviously a huge game. And we know about Oklahoma's policy, kind of once you're committed, you don't take visits. How's that gone over with the Oklahoma staff? How's his recruitment? Where is he at with OU right now?
To their credit, I think Oklahoma is playing it wise and realizing they don't have the strongest hand right now, and not to get too militant about the rules and that kind of stuff. So I think they've played this wisely. He spoke to Jay Valai, and I can say he let OU know before. And I think it's become clear watching that rule get, how Oklahoma deals with it. It matters a lot if you notify. Like if they don't want to hear about you showing up at Texas or Oregon or wherever else, like they need to know about it beforehand, deal with it, have had conversations with you. And I think that tends to mitigate some of the backlash that can happen, or that is supposed to be the mechanism. So it sounds like Oklahoma's taking it pretty well. I talked to Courtland about it. he basically said, over time, I kind of thought, okay, I made my decision really early. Maybe I rushed into it. But he was very clear. I went to Texas. I left at halftime. Like, I don't think he was – I think it was more of a, well, let me see what I'm missing kind of thing. And if you're an OU fan, the perfect time for Courtland Guillory to have left OU Texas was halftime, with Georgia just pounding Texas in that game. So maybe that was the perfect recipe for OU, from OU's point of view. But he also said, I'm going to OU. I feel solid about that decision. Like, I think it was just, after watching OU Texas, who could blame him for a little bit of cold feet? But it sounds like OU's done a nice job kind of, solidifying his thoughts.
I suppose if there's anything, he is on the defensive side of the ball, where maybe they're not having as many struggles as the offensive side.
And you look out there, and I'm sure he looks out there and he says, well, they're not afraid to play some young cornerbacks out there. We saw this past weekend. Eli Bowen's out there a lot.
Tremendous amount of opportunity.
Yeah,
on the defensive side.
Jacoby Johnson is playing a ton. Yeah. So, like, he has a chance to maybe get on the field early.
Is there a reality that we're talking about Courtland Guillory in a year from now? Do you think he could make that transition, Josh, just from where he's at right now as a senior?
He's one of those interesting cases, because I think he's still very raw. He still doesn't there's a lot he doesn't have to do, because no one's going to challenge him. He's so clearly the best athlete on the roster, on the team. Not to say that Klein Oak doesn't have some good players. They do. But Courtland Guillory is a really gifted guy. I think he's got high-end ability for what they want to do. It's about how quickly he can pick it up. And if he can pick it up, then yeah, I think that's absolutely in the cards for him. He's not a bean pole out there. He's not going to get just shoved around by everybody. He's going to have to get bigger and stronger, of course. But he's not a guy that you just say, oh, he'll never hold up physically. It's not what you want to do, but I could absolutely see him being in a situation, kind of like we saw Jacoby Johnson in as a freshman, where as the year went on, he got more and more. You saw him get some reps, kind of earn his way out there, play a lot of special teams. I could absolutely see that being the case for Courtland Guillory, because, again, the tools are there. It's just about him learning it. And I think maybe having I don't even know what I would say, because I don't know, other than just the experience, the technique. I don't know what it is he lacks, because one thing I do want to note before we move on, this is a guy that was locked in. Like, from beginning to end, he was very much a part of things. It mattered to him. This wasn't a guy just like playing out the string his senior year of high school. Like, he's invested. And I very much liked the demeanor of Courtland Guillory, because he wasn't out there like screaming at his teammates or anything like that. It was, I could have done this. I could hear him talking with his coaches. Like, it was very much a how do I get better kind of mindset.
Forgive me if this is common knowledge and I am just an idiot. Early enrollee for Courtland Guillory, or is he planning on going through his spring semester?
Yeah, he will be enrolling in January, and he reiterated that when we talked, following that Klein game. So everything still seems on course. Really, guys, I mean, when you look at this 25 class, obviously we know Oklahoma needs an injection of talent. And I believe, if I've got it right, I don't have a firm answer on Grayson Harris. Marion Robinson is trying to enroll early. And, who am I forgetting? There's one other that's absolutely not doing it, and it's for a spring sport that I should know. And I can't remember who it is, but there's only 3 guys that I know of right now that are absolutely not planning to enroll early. And I can't believe I'm forgetting the third. But like I said, Grayson Harris, I'm not sure. Oh, CJ Nixon. I knew it was somebody. Yeah, CJ Nixon, obviously the basketball.
Sure.
He's the only one that I'm sure is not enrolling. Grayson Harris doesn't speak to anyone, so I just don't have that answer right now. And like I said, Marion Robinson, he's trying to get in, but I haven't checked in with him about that in a couple of weeks. So we'll have to kind of see what he's got going.
Grayson Harris, another one of the dual sport guys. I could easily see him wanting to stick around at NS to play his senior year of baseball. A teammate of Courtland Guillory, a guy that kind of burst onto the scene this past summer when he came up here and visited Brent Venables football camp. Micah Rhodes, the 2028 running back, 5'10", 180, young kid, 2028, as we said, but picked up an Oklahoma offer over the course of his summer visit to Norman. And what did you make of Micah Rhodes going at it on Thursday evening?
Yeah, a game that Micah's not going to want to like. He's not going to love that this is the game we chose to highlight. He had some good moments. Had their first touchdown of the night. And again, for a freshman playing in Houston, and all the talent that is there, I thought Klein had some good, solid players as well. They got a young defensive lineman that I thought was pretty interesting. But he also had, as Klein Oaks trying to drive late in the game, trying to get back in it. He had a costly fumble on a fourth down where they're trying to go for it on fourth and short. Again, it's football. It wasn't like some egregious thing. He kind of fumbled the snap. They had him playing in a wildcat situation. But again, you see a lot of vision, a lot of intelligence from him. He's a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. They threw to him quite a bit, really like to use him kind of on those almost like a sprint motion thing where he'd go in motion immediately as soon as the ball snapped. They're throwing him a swing pass. So I just saw a lot there, and clearly they're not afraid to lean on him. They see how special he is. But again, guy with great feet, very physical. Couldn't find a lot of room to run in this one, but again, you can understand why DeMarco Murray was willing to offer this guy before he'd even started, his high school career.
I was going to ask Justice, what kind of you kind of explained it there a little bit, but just what kind of running back is he? I mean, it looks like you didn't get to see much of his maybe breakaway speed, things like that. But then you also look at his, like you mentioned, his offer list is pretty damn good. Oklahoma, Ohio State, Penn State, Ole Miss, Oregon. I mean, those are some big schools that have already offered him.
Yeah, and here, like you can see him right here on that exact play I'm talking about, where they're throwing in that quick swing pass, and he's just breaking into space. And again, I would say, and it's so tough to gauge speed because like he's so young, and you're like, okay, let's see where this goes. I would guess by the time he's a senior, he is a legit speed threat kind of back. Like I think that's where he'll be, but I don't think he is a pure north and south guy. Like, okay, that's all he's got. He can run upfield or he's in trouble. And here's his touchdown early in the game. But I see a very complete guy. Maybe, honestly, and I know, we obviously watched Taylor Tatum have some success for Oklahoma this weekend, but the guy in his class that we talked about a lot, Caden Durham, like I see some stuff there. Now, I don't know if he's going to be a 10-3 guy like Caden Durham, but like I see some similar running style, some similar physicality, but at the same time is a guy that really you can do anything you want out of the backfield with him.
Caden Durham coming off of a pretty damn good game Saturday night down in College Station for LSU. So it'll be interesting. Obviously, 2028, so he's got plenty of time. We'll see what happens with, certainly with the Oklahoma running back room, the running back coach. Here he is at camp, though, just to get a little bit of a reminder of what we saw when we saw Micah Rhodes earlier this summer. Had the blue gloves. That was one of the ways that I remember thinking about it.
Yeah, he was impressive that day.
Big kid, too, for 2028.
I mean, look at the legs there, guys. Like, I mean, that's just for a kid that was literally in the summer after his 8th grade year. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And you can tell, again, the amount of work he puts in. And guys, that was the thing. There were a lot of good backs there. The kid behind him right here is the 2028 from Washington. It's going to be a really good player. So there were a lot of good young backs, and several of them left without an offer. And obviously Micah Rhodes wasn't one of those guys.
No doubt about it. One more game that you made a stop in over the course of the weekend. It is now time to tell you about William & Lauren, the official custom clothier of OU football. William & Lauren outfits your favorite OU players in custom suits that boost their confidence off the field to match their confidence on the field. Their perfectly tailored clothing ensures every suitor stands out in comfort and style at prices that make luxury accessible. Visit William & Lauren in Oklahoma City or online at williamandlauren.com. Dress like a champion and make your style as legendary as OU football. William & Lauren, that is William the name, and Lauren.com if you're going to visit on the websites. Use the Googles. OU football team coming in. Need to get a little bit new video of them
is that
coming
OU
in
Texas
this
right
week.
there?
That's OU Texas. Didn't see them much over the course of the pregame festivities in Oxford over the course of the weekend, but that was explainable. That was we were in the Grove, and that's where you need to be.
I think say, what were you doing, Eddie?
We were in the Grove.
You seemed like you might have been busy.
I had to go check out the Grove. It was magical. We'll detail that in full during the Game Day Rewind coming out here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. I think the last time that you went over to Willis, Texas was to see DJ Lagway as possibly a junior, if I remember correctly. Went back over there this weekend, though, to see an Oklahoma offer, an athlete, stars on both sides of the ball for Willis, Texas, or Willis High School. 5'11", 155 is what we have him listed at. I think he's probably a little bit heavier than that, Josh, but we're talking about Jermaine Bishop Jr.
Yeah, guys, the last time I was at Willis, to put it all in perspective, was the day that Anthony Evans and I can't remember who the other commitment was that day. There were two GoU commitments. I went to Willis and then drove to San Antonio the next day to see Anthony Evans play in his season opener. So, yeah, I think Lagway had like 6 touchdowns that night in the first half. Like, it was crazy. I mean, it was exactly what you'd think. But, yeah, got to see Jermaine Bishop, the cornerback offer from Willis, Texas. Played a lot of wide receiver, played really more safety for Willis in this one. And I talked to him a little bit after the game. And he kind of mentioned, I've played wide receiver longer. I'm a little more comfortable there. But I think he understands that his size, his length, that plays up at corner. He's even more valuable there as a prospect. But this is a guy that, and again, I mean, look at that catch, guys. Like that was his lone really big play of the night. But the way he fights through that traffic, he's getting held as he's going in. For a group of OU fans that are watching guys struggle to make plays, watching this high school kid just make this play when look at there's an arm around his waist, just goes up, grabs it with his hands. That's a great play. I don't care who you're playing against, what you're doing. That's just outstanding. But I couldn't have been more impressed with him, the way he played both ways, just about, I think, every snap until, late in the fourth quarter when this game got really, really out of hand. But yeah, okay, so here's no, this is not it. I at some point nearly get destroyed by Jermaine.
You almost
Bishop,
got taken out. Almost got taken out. That it made my heart skip a beat.
Yeah, so here he comes. I mean, look at this spin move. That's just beautiful. And this is where, Eddie, you know how it is. You get to watch the guy making a play. You're like, oh, wow, that's great. And right here, I'm like, oh, no.
That's complete great bailout. But, hey, you get it back. It's really good recap. Looks like a fun party guy.
Yep. I was about to say, that guy looks like a character.
Probably. Yeah, that's team photographer guy, because it was homecoming. He was shooting all the shots. That guy is a member of that community for sure.
Wow, that was great.
Had some interesting thoughts on the election next week that I thought was interesting, that I heard you guys talking about on some of the audio. I dropped all that though. We saved that for everybody else.
Well, he looks like a skinny John Daly, if I'm not wrong there. So there was some of that energy for sure. Definitely a guy that was crushing beers in the parking lot after the game.
Josh, watching him, obviously very impressive player, and some of those clips are offensively, but take us through where his recruitment's at. I know he's a 2026 kid, like you said. Sounds like OU's kind of recruiting him as a corner. I would assume that's Jay Valai that's been kind of the point of contact for him, but you look at his offer list, I mean, this kid's getting recruited by every major program. It seems like Florida's listed on here, A&M, USC, Texas, Tennessee, Arkansas, Nebraska. I mean, it's a big offer list. Where's he at in his recruitment right now?
I think he's fairly open. Now, I will say, I want to be clear, as we're going into the interview, and I don't think he knew it, and we spoke afterward. It'll be up on the editorial page here during this week, but he had a Texas skull cap on, and I was like, look, man, I'm not going to tell you what to wear, but I'm just going to tell you you're going to draw some crap if you wear that during this interview. And he was like, oh, my, he immediately was like, I think he just had worn it and hadn't thought anything about it. But at the same time, you're not wearing that if you're not pretty interested in Texas. So I think you'd have to say Texas is in pretty good shape. Now, he was supposed to be at OU Texas, didn't end up going. To me, I'm trying to figure out a little bit where he is on Oklahoma's board. There's no question they like him. I'm just again, it's so early on. There's a lot of corners they like, and I'm trying to figure out, is he priority one? And he may be. I just don't know all the answers on that yet, and I think Oklahoma, frankly, is still working all that out. But there's no question. This is a guy that's going to have a lot of big opportunities. And I think he's one of those people that people watch and they're kind of say, oh, he's a 3-star, or he's this or he's that. he's got a lot of room to get better. This is a guy that's still figuring it out. Really, though, very well Willis is a really well coached program. Trent Miller came in there, right? He basically is the guy that spearheaded all this, and now Willis is talking about building like another, like $60 million football facility and all this stuff. Like they're going to be exploding kind of on the very extreme north side of Houston. It's amazing that technically I was still in the same city I live in, but it took me an hour and a half to get there. So it's just a wild time at Willis. But again, I like Bishop a lot, and I kind of expect him to show up at OU here at some point, whether it's the end of the season, whether it's for like a junior day, something like that. I do think Oklahoma will get him up. I think he really does like Jay Valai, but I don't think he is beholden to much at this point. He seems like he's kind of open to the process.
Will be interesting to keep an eye on. Yeah, it's a weird happening. I got some family that live up in Conroe and a couple cousins that live actually over in Willis. It's a far drive from my sister's house in I guess North Houston, wherever that may be. Washington Street. I know that. I know where Washington Street is, and I know where what's the excellent fajita restaurant El
Tiempo.
El Tiempo.
Yeah, Eddie's talking about the Heights. Eddie knows where the cool college guys hang out. That's the least surprising news ever.
Did a hit and run down there. That's a factual story, but I don't think I can be charged anymore for it. I wasn't driving either. It was my buddy. He knows who it is. Probably watching right now. There was a number of guys in action over the weekend in course of the 2025 class. Ryan Fogey, it sounds like, had a really good day for Bridgeland. They're over 400 yards. You recapped everything in the Future Sooners, which you can see on SoonerScoop.com. A couple guys that I did want to highlight real quick. Emmanuel Choice continues to have a really good year for Lancaster. 76 yards reception, 2 touchdowns, 33 and 18-yard touchdown receptions in a 3-reception night. Grayson Harris, 9 for 71 plus a touchdown. Marcus Harris in number 1 Mater Day absolutely throttles St. John Bosco. 59-14. Marcus Harris had a 58-yard reception in that one. Tristan Haynes, Marcus James, Trenae Washington, Carl Albert, surprise, continues to roll. They knock off Lawton 68-12. It sounds like Tristan Haynes had a really good night, a 68-yard punt return for a touchdown. Cortez Mills just continues to put together a highlight reel of a senior season. 6 receptions, 130 yards, and a touchdown in a 27-12 win. CJ Nixon, of course, when we don't have a camera there, had a really good game. 9 tackles, 5 of those, I believe, were solo tackles, plus a sack on the night and a 28-21 win over Elk City. I believe that is a little bit of a rivalry game as Weatherford improves to 6-2. Unfortunate news out of Wagner. Alexander Shield Knight goes down, has a season-ending injury for his senior season as Wagner, one of the 4A state championship Gold Ball favorites. Anything else to report there? Do we know what type of injury it was, Josh?
Yeah, and honestly, we have a member on the board who is, I believe his nephew is Alex Shield Knight's opposite defensive end. And kind of always gives us the updates on what's going on. And he said something almost immediate like, Shield Knight just went down. It doesn't look good kind of thing. I believe the Tulsa World reported it was a broken fibula. So he has broken the bone in his leg. So it's season ending. He's done. And I know Dale Condit over there at Wagner, I think said something like, I'm just crushed. I mean, that's a kid, obviously super talented. You hate to lose him, but that's a program guy. Like Wagner loves that kid. That's a guy they want to show is like, this is what we want our program to be about, the stuff that Alex Shield Knight's about. So that's a really tough deal. It feel terrible for the guy because, the way it ended for Wagner last year, all they wanted to do was get back to the state championship game and finish it off and, do, basically what Wagner has done since Dale Condit got there, and that's go win gold balls. So obviously still on the table for Wagner. They're outstanding. They're one of 4 or 5 teams in a really, really good year in 4A where there's really that playoff run is going to be a lot of fun to watch. But obviously just really sad for Alex Shield Knight, who's, Eddie, has always been great to deal with, always
Absolutely.
been good to us, and just a good kid.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It
Fibulas,
sucks.
that's
That sounds
the
like
biggest,
a very traumatizing injury.
Isn't that the biggest bone in your body?
Do not know that.
I think
not
it
a
is.
doctor. But I'll go with you.
You're talking femur. That's
Femur.
upper. That's the
That's
thigh.
what I'm thinking of. Yeah, Fibula though. That's tough.
It sucks.
Yeah, it's not good.
That's a long
It's not
recovery.
fun.
I
I
think.
feel terrible for him. And you're right, Josh. 4A state playoffs here in the state of Oklahoma are going to be phenomenal. Cushing's a really good football team. You also have Tuttle, obviously. Blanchard, defending state champion, I believe, has been fantastic. Podo's always around there, it seems like, in 4A, as well as Coach Brickman in Newcastle. 9-3 right now, off to a pretty good season so far. Or I guess not 9-3. They're not 9-3.
I think it'd be hard to be 9-3.
That'd be tough. I think that they're off to a pretty good start as well. I know Josh Calloway does their play-by-play stuff. So, last but not least here for the recruiting report, what's the latest on Caleb Burns, the Cy Falls linebacker that was previously committed to, I guess technically still committed to Baylor? Took the visit to Eugene for the Oregon-Ohio State game. I know there was a number of RPMs that came in for him to flip to Oregon. Was expected to be in Norman a couple weeks ago. Didn't make that visit, though. Where do things stand with Caleb Burns in Oklahoma?
Yeah, we covered it a little bit in the podcast, but for anybody that missed that, Caleb Burns injured his foot the night before he was supposed to make that trip up for the South Carolina game. Didn't end up making the trip. I know people, like immediately like, oh, flat tire and that kind of stuff. I get it. I think there's part of me that's like, he probably makes that trip if Oklahoma's in a little different trajectory right now, or if he hadn't just gone to Oregon and that visit went so exceedingly well. So we'll watch and see. Now he's still expected to take the official visit for the Alabama weekend, but that's putting all your eggs in one basket. We don't know what that weekend will look like. Who knows, what that whole atmosphere will be, in another month's time. But he didn't make that trip. And again, starting to feel like I wouldn't say I'm fully ready to change my RPM from Oklahoma, but it's starting to, I guess, starting to get late kind of early. It feels like that's moving in the wrong direction.
Josh, would they go in a different direction, or is there anybody else out there that they would maybe try to check back with?
Yeah, I think it would be another situation kind of like Caleb Burns, where they're going to look at a few guys that don't hold an Oklahoma offer right now. There's another kid out of the Cy-Fair ISD, a linebacker over at Cy Ranch, whose name is just going to escape me right at the moment, that I know they've looked at, they've talked to a little bit. They're looking at a few different options. I don't think they're set on, if Burns didn't happen, we immediately pivot to this. I don't know that they've come to that point yet. But at the same time, I definitely get the impression that they know they need another linebacker along with Marcus James, who I did want to say, Eddie, when you were breaking down all the commits, Marcus had a really nice game last week. 9 tackles, 5 solo. I think he had a couple of tackles for loss.
2.
Seems like he's starting to really kind of find his groove with that Carl Albert defense to me.
We'll be going to see the Titans, I would imagine, here before too long. Probably within the next month's time here as they go for another gold ball in 5A.
Josh, I had just one more question for you, and I'll probably be asking you this every week on the recruiting report going forward this season. And we'll get into the game on Saturday on the game day rewind. But anything else from the 2025 class? I just feel like, and maybe this is we always joke on here, me being the negative guy on the recruiting report, but it's a reality. It just feels like every week it's like, okay, where do some of these guys stand? And some of it is
another week closer to the mid-December signing day. It's like, how can they keep this thing somewhat together?
Yeah. Is there any other rumblings, or is it still the same as it was probably a week ago?
It's pretty similar. I don't think there's. I mean, I guess the good news is Oklahoma didn't go out and bury themselves in shame against Ole Miss. Like, it's not like the obviously South Carolina and Texas. You're like, oh man, that's tough to sell to any of your recruits. Like, oh, this thing's headed in the right direction. Are you sure? I don't think you come out of Ole Miss feeling the same way. Now, you lost again. You're now a 4-4 football team. As we all know, and I mean, I think that's something, George, that, and I talk to fans about this all the time. Like, they're panicking because they can see 5-7 or 6-6 or whatever it is. They can see it coming. They're looking down the track. The players are just like, they're not looking at it like that. They're worried about their own schedule. They're worried about their girlfriend. They're OU's outlook for the season is not their sole focus and purpose. That's not where their brain is. But now, as you get later in the season, you're like, oh, this is going in this direction. And this is, now, obviously, I think we all expect OU to get back above 500 this weekend. And maybe, maybe that gives a little hope, little something you can sell. But again, I don't think you're wrong at all, George, to continue asking this question, because at some point you feel like somewhere somebody's going to lose hope. Like somebody's going to get concerned or like another offer that they know they have better, whatever it may be. But it's tough for me to believe that this whole class really sticks together if this season ends kind of like we think it will.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of it, we won't know until after November 30th when they play their final game, and if their staff changes it, immediately the next day. I was telling Eddie in the car on the ride back, is like, we got to be ready that day after the LSU game, because all sorts of stuff could be happening, whether it's staff changes or decommitments or
late
guys
November
entering the portal
and early December.
Yeah.
We plan to be quite busy, I think.
Yeah, so
that's probably
it's
the
kind of
best
a
way
wait
to
and
say it.
see situation, I would say, with all of this stuff.
No doubt.
And it's worth remembering, guys, this is going to be the first year where they've changed over. This isn't going to be mid-December signing day. This is going to be that first Wednesday coming right out, of championship week. So that's going to be chaos with all that we expect as far as coaching change, all that we already know in coaching changes beyond what could happen. And then everything else with the possibility of decommitments and guys flipping, and you're not going to have any time to respond. Like, let's say, there is another position change. Well, that guy decommits. He can sign with the school he's flipped to 3 days later. Like, yeah. I mean, there's nothing to stop that train. And again, you can't sign a letter of intent, so it all is kind of up in the air as far as what it all means. But it is, again, this is going to be a very interesting offseason. So, there's no doubt.
This might be a dumb question. One, what's the exact date for signing day, Josh, in December?
I believe
the
first
Wednesday,
December 4th. It'll be the first
correct.
Wednesday.
December 4th. So December 4th is signing day, which the letter of intent, I mean, I guess signing day doesn't really matter anymore because the letter of intent's kind of gone away.
Right.
And then portal opens December 9th. So pretty big week there, because I'm assuming OU is going to be pretty busy in the portal. But I don't know, Josh. I mean, the letter of intent stuff I think is really fascinating because it, like you said, it kind of almost doesn't matter anymore.
Yep. That's what I'm interested to see, guys, is how do they navigate, like, okay, you can sign your financial aid agreement. And that's what they're going to do. That'll be the, how to make the signing day ceremony still feel like a big deal and all that stuff. Okay, great. But that means that technically they're still basically recruits. Like, you're still like, so you sign with Oklahoma. Well, Texas can still contact you. They can still get in touch, and you can still make that choice, as I understand the way this is going to go. Now, maybe there's a window I've missed, but like, are these guys going to be just open season all December, and basically once they show up enrolled, then the door finally closes? Like, if so, this December could get nuts. I mean, it could be. I know my wife and children could absolutely hate me through the month of December.
It's a great way to intro into Jesus' birthday month, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kerry did say, too, that he thinks that he believes that players or recruits will also sign an NIL or have the opportunity to sign an NIL deal with that particular school. They could start getting paid. I think that would bind you. Is that right, Kerry?
Yeah.
Yeah, he says, but contracts are made to be broken. Welcome to college football in 2024.
And it's going to be fascinating too, because does that, if let's say they go out and they hire some new offensive staff members, a new offensive coordinator, right after the LSU game, trying to hold that thing together before December 4th, before December 9th, and the portal opening, like, that's going to be fascinating. And then the NIL part of it, if you want to keep some of these guys, maybe that price goes up all of a sudden in a week's time.
Doesn't seem like the schools have a lot of. I don't know. It seems like the chips are stacked up against the school rather than the other way around. But maybe the recruits have always held the power.
Well, it's a tough spot for the kids.
Oh,
to be
incredibly
put into.
tough.
I mean, for them to have to maybe make a decision, especially if you're committed to OU and all of a sudden there's staff changes and signing days December 4th and all that stuff. It's going to be chaos.
Good. Good. I'm glad that there's somebody that's going to be covering it, and that is us.
Sign up now.
We're the lucky people here in all of this, and you're also lucky out there. And I guess it's good and bad. It's good that we're done here with the recruiting report, but we're going to roll into a game day rewind here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel, catching up everything with Ole Miss on Saturday from the team side of things down in Oxford. So that's going to do it for the recruiting report. Josh, George, I'm Eddie. We'll see you back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel for next week's recruiting report. Talk to you then.